Bill and Hillary's first full day as grandparents. Good morning, and thanks for getting up with us while you were asleep last night. Hopefully you were asleep last night. Maybe you found out about it before you went to bed, like me. But anyway, overnight we learned that Bill and Hillary Clinton are now grandparents. Daughter Chelsea gave birth late last night to a baby girl. She and her husband, Mark Mizvinsky, are naming Charlotte Clinton Mizvinsky. The early word is that the baby will be eligible for the presidency in 2052, if you're keeping score at home. Also in the news this morning, the White House is hinting at the timetable for naming a replacement for Attorney General Eric Holder. The UK Parliament has voted to authorize airstrikes against ISIS only in Iraq, though. The vote did not include Syria. We're going to talk about all this morning, but we want to begin this hour in Oklahoma. It's where highway patrol officers say that 4 people have been killed in an overnight bus crash. All 4 were members of the North Central Texas College softball team. Their bus collided with a semi-truck on the interstate late last night. 3 of the women died at the scene and the 4th at the hospital. 15 more people on the bus were injured. The bus was returning from Gainesville, Florida. We're going to keep you updated on the latest developments from this as we get them. But turning now to that American-led campaign against ISIS, that effort has received 3 new helping hands in just the last 24 hours. Belgium and Denmark have both agreed to offer military support. And in the UK yesterday, the House of Commons spent hours debating the authorization of force.
I believe, Mr. Speaker, it is also our duty to take part. This international operation is about protecting our people too, and protecting the streets of Britain should not be a task that we are prepared to entirely subcontract to other air forces of other countries. So it is right for us to act.
And after that, the UK Parliament did vote overwhelmingly to authorize airstrikes in Iraq. However, the vote did not include, as we said, Syria. So far, the attacks within Syria have been carried out by the United States and by 5 Arab states threatened by ISIS. Here in the U.S., Congress has voted in favor of supplying aid and training to moderate rebel groups in Syria, but there has been no vote on airstrikes or any broader campaign. And both chambers say there won't be one anytime soon, not until the new session in January at the earliest. House Speaker John Boehner told the New York Times this week, quote, "Doing this with a whole group of members who are on their way out the door, I don't think that is the right way to handle this." And Harry Reid, the Democratic leader in the Senate, he isn't calling back senators for a vote either. Quote, "As we move forward, I expect consultations between the administration and Congress to continue." So the big question now is, will Congress feel the pressure? Will Congress feel any pressure to vote on this, to come back from the campaign trail sometime in the next 2 months, debate the military action that's been going on for weeks now, military action being taken in the name of every American? To discuss this, I'm joined by Amy Davidson, executive editor of the New Yorker magazine's website, Medal of Honor recipient and MSNBC contributor Colonel Jack Jacobs, and Anna Marie Cox, contributor to the Daily Beast. So let's start on this question of the vote. And maybe I'm being a little too cynical here, because I've noticed a pattern, and that is when, for lack of a better term, backbench members of Congress are on TV or they're confronted in interviews about this subject, they say, "Oh, I want to vote. I absolutely want to vote. We should vote. It's the right thing to do." And they give you the whole spin on that. And it's almost as if they're all being protected by the leadership. They're being protected by John Boehner, the Republican Speaker, Harry Reid, the Democratic leader in the Senate. They say, you know what? You guys go out there and say you want to vote all you want. It's what the voters want to hear, but don't worry. We're going to make sure you don't actually have to.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they held a vote, they'd have to be accountable for how they voted, which is a problem, right? I mean, it's so funny to hear this clamoring for a debate over the authorization of use of force, this outcry for the Congress to be a part of this decision, and it's not. No one actually seems to have that happen. I was just looking at the little clip of the UK debate, and how novel to have a debate over the use of force. It's almost like there's a country that's doing democracy better than us.
That's an argument for the parliamentary system here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we really need, but it won't happen. I'm reminded of a time during the war in Vietnam when everybody was doing exactly the same thing as this, on the air all the time, talking about how bad the war in Vietnam was, just assuming that nobody had ever read the Constitution and recognized that Article 1 of the Constitution is not the president, it's the Congress. At the end of the day, it's the Congress that decides whether or not we'll spend the money on it, and you don't want to do it? stop paying the money.
The War Powers Act actually gives them the ability to do this if there's not a regular report on how we're doing, but no one seems to mention that either.
Well, you asked about pressure. Where is the pressure going to come from? Is the president, this is a president who's talked in the past about how this is not the way he wants to go to war, but it's really easy for him to do it, and he's not.
Well,
And there's no pressure from Congress, so where is the pressure? Everybody's making it easy for everybody else, and it sets us up with a bad methodology for how to go to war.
It would take, it seems to me, it's the midterm campaign season, control of the Senate's on the line, every House seat in the country is up for grabs. It would take the American people in their districts, in their home states, telling these candidates who are coming back right now, demanding to know where they stand on this, demanding to know why they haven't voted. And it would take those members, I think, turning around and telling leadership, we have to do this. But
it's a little amazing what John Boehner was saying. He basically was saying he didn't think it was appropriate for Congress to do anything important for the next 3 months, which is...
Well,
how's that different?
Why change the habit of a lifetime?
Well, I think you included a word in there, important, which is not important for Congress to do anything.
Or anything.
Yeah.
It's funny because, to what you said, John Boehner earlier this week was asked, isn't this kind of what your guys are supposed to do with the wars? And he says, well, that's just not how it's gone lately.
Well, I will say this, like in terms of what Boehner was saying there, he's specifically talking about the lame duck session. So everybody's out campaigning right now, and then all these guys who are either retiring or who lose their seats or whatever, they come back for a month, and he's saying he doesn't think that's the appropriate time to vote in this. And in that sense, I think he has a point in that. I think back to 2002, and I think back to the vote to authorize Iraq. Now, we can go back and revisit that vote all we want, but the one right thing they did about that vote was they did do that vote before the election.
Right.
That took place in the fall, and every candidate who was out there running, the Bush administration thought they had an electoral advantage with it. That's why it happened. But they did do that vote before the election.
Boehner
could do it right now.
He can call people back before the election.
It's not like he's powerless. It's not like there aren't tools in the legislative, repertoire to do this.
It's not for nothing that the American public is so cynical about government. Neither the president nor the guys at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue do anything that the people wants, that is to govern. They're supposed to work together and govern, and every poll indicates that the American people hate their government, not the government. They're starting to hate the form of government.
Yeah.
That's very, very dangerous.
But they got to make, if for this to change at all, for what Boehner's laid out this week, for a no vote until maybe early next year, and if you listen to Harry Reid's not even sure they need a vote on broader authorization. For that to change, there's got to be real noise from the American people.
And we're being really skillfully manipulated by terrorists in this regard. I mean, the lawmakers are able to use emotion to make this appeal without having any accountability. And these acts of violence that are happening are being spread in the news, and lawmakers are having something to react to, and the American people are having something to react to, but there's no one there to take responsibility for any accountability moving forward.
Well, as long as it's not happening to them.
Yeah. Exactly.
They don't have any skin in the game, and they're perfectly happy to listen to the president say, we're going to go blow up these bad guys, and it won't cost you a penny. Now go back to your homes. I mean, this president is the logical inheritor of exactly the same attitude as the last president. Go back to your homes. Don't worry about it.
We do have a lot of skin in the game.
Yeah, we do.
But and also, if let's say we get to January and there is a vote, then you can look how fast this is escalating right now. Look how fast we're bringing in other countries. This thing is getting bigger, really, by the day. So, at that point, what is the point of a debate in January if so many facts on the ground have already been established?
That's a really interesting point, because this isn't just sending some planes and bombing. It's making deals with other countries. It's making arrangements. It's making trade-offs. It's making promises. All of those things that war involves, besides just pulling a trigger, and that's something.
So then we would hear in this debate from the administration, well, don't pull out now because we've already established, we've made these Arab alliances, we brought Belgium in, right?
And it's not like a war is something you could put on a shelf and hope it's going to look exactly the same when it's politically convenient for you to come back.
We're making a big effort to do that. There's no doubt about that.
And this is an even more confusing. I mean, if possible, this is an even more confusing situation than the Iraq situation, right? Remember when the hardest thing about the Middle East was to keep the Sunni and Shiite straight? That's not even relevant necessarily now. I mean, this coalition we're putting together is a constantly shifting coalition within those countries. I mean, the American people are seeing something play out that I don't even think the lawmakers understand what the alliances are. But I wanted to just get back to one quick thing, which is the idea that escalation is happening, that we won't be able to stop, this idea that the American people don't really know exactly what's happening. The scary statistic I saw recently in a polling was that the American people are now split almost 50-50 as to whether or not we should have pulled out of Iraq.
Yeah.
That's an amazing number. when you think about the numbers that were like when Obama was elected, how he ran on.
Right. No, it's right. I mean, that's a bigger subject too, and of course there's a big talking point too about the circumstances of the U.S. finally drawing down a couple years ago. That's been heavily discussed, and obviously is still going to be. I want to move on though.